Okay. Alrighty, so I posted on Canvas what this assignment is going to look like, okay? And I'm going to show you today some of the things that you're going to need to know to do this. You've got, I want to show you here in the mixer, here are the list of scenes on the board. I've got 0, 0, which is what they call the initial data. That's just like what the mixer does out of the box, right? And then I've got 0, 1. And this is just like the things that we did last week, which was I patched the Dante and I labeled the inputs. Okay, so you saw me do that, and I'm going to give you that much to start with. Okay, so the Dante is patched, so the inputs are patched, and this stereo main output is patched, and the inputs are labeled according to what they are. And you can see that here, like if I just kind of step through these, channel 1 is the kick drum, 2 is the snare drum, this is the drum compressed, this is the hi-hat, tom left, tom right, overhead left, overhead right, room left, room right, bass, clean, so on and so forth, okay? So I've labeled all those things, and they're all currently, all the inputs are routed to the main stereo output ready to go, okay? And this is what we have. So what I've done is I just have every channel unmuted, and I've got all the faders up at the same level, okay? So I am technically mixing all of these sounds together right now. And this is what we have, okay? It's a total of 19 tracks. And I've got the track layout over there on Canvas. And this is not a great mix. I wouldn't say this sounds amazing. Let me go back a little bit here. So let's go through and just like listen to these things one at a time. Okay. So this is my kick drum mic. What do you notice about this? Yeah, I'm hearing other things besides just that kick drum, right? The kick drum's the loudest thing for sure, but yeah, we're hearing the other drums in this as well. Okay, that's good to know. This is supposedly our snare drum. Right? We're hearing a lot of hi-hat in there. We're hearing the kick drum in here. We're hearing the tom. We're hearing everything in this, right? The snare is the loudest thing for sure, right? This is the snare drum and the kick drum mics put through a compressor. I'll talk about what a compressor is in a minute. Okay. Again, it's picking up everything. Now this is supposedly the tom. No, this is the hi-hat. Right? So this is the hi-hat, but again, we're picking up a lot of other things in here. This is over one of the over one of the areas of toms, the big drums over here. Right? Those are the loudest things, right? But it's picking up a lot of other stuff. This is the other tom. What's interesting about this one is that whatever that low thing is, I don't know what that is. It almost sounds like it's that big floor tom that's just vibrating from all the other energy in the air. Like even when you're not hitting it, it's making some noise. And drums have a tendency to do that. They respond to that air pressure change. So that's a little weird. Okay. This is a mic that's overhead the drum kit, so you should be hearing mostly cymbals here. But you hear a lot of other stuff too. This is the other side overhead. Okay, and then this one is, these are two mics that they put kind of away from the drum set, not close to any particular drum, to just kind of get the overall sound of the drum set. So there's one on each side. And here's the other one. So those are just two mics a little farther away, pointed at the drum set, and you kind of get the whole picture of the drum set. But it also gives you a sense of the room, like you're hearing a lot of the natural reflections and reverb in the room that the drums are playing in. Okay? So as you're listening through these, just remember these things. Remember these things you're noticing about it. What's good about it? What's not great about it? What, if anything, what concerns do I have about it? This is our bass. Now this sounds like it was a direct box. So the bass was plugged into what's called a direct injection box and fed directly into the recorder. So that's why we're not hearing anything else. There was no microphone involved here. This was a direct line in. Well, I do hear a little bit of cymbals right there. That's interesting. Okay. Let's see. This one is 12 is one of the guitars. This is the one of clean guitar 1. First thing you notice is this hum, right? That amp is humming like crazy. And that's what guitar amps do. To do these effects on the guitars, what comes with it is those extra sounds. Okay, this is another electric guitar. Not as hummy, right? The effect that's on it is not generate as much hum. This is a distorted electric guitar. They're not playing it right now. But we do have a little bit of noise. There it goes. They just unmuted it on the pedal. They're going to start playing in a second. They probably had a mute pedal, and they just undid it. Let's see what they got. Oh, here he goes. He's getting ready. The big moment is coming. Okay. Okay, so we know we've got a lot of handling noise here. There's a little bit of hum, but it is what it is. This is a second, two distorted guitars, same problems. Okay, this is a lead kind of solo guitar. It doesn't come in until somewhere around here. Here we go. They're getting ready. The big guitar solo. There, now we go. Okay. Yeah. And then here's the other one. So here. Okay, so here's another guitar solo, but it's with a different effect on it. Our second lead. Let's hear what happens. Oh, okay, they picked it up. Other guy. Okay. Got a nice little tremolo on there. That's nice. Okay, so there's that. Okay, so, and then we've got some vocals here. Let's listen to these. So here's our lead vocalist.
Now some would say that her life was a party and no one came, but that wasn't the case.
Okay, so they're singing with, they've got headphones on, I'm sure, and they're hearing the rest of me. They're in a booth somewhere. So we don't have a lot of bleed, but we're hearing a little bit off of the headphones.
Life is divine, she'd say.
If you listen real carefully, you can hear a little bit of bleed off the headphones too. But pretty good, pretty clean recording.
Say what you will.
All right, doing his best there. Here's our backup singers. And they come in during the chorus, so let's go back to that.
Say what you will. Say what you will. Say what you will.
Okay, that's it. So we got to turn that into something now. So just to, this is kind of, if I just turn all that stuff on at one time and let it play, this is what we have. Okay. Now, what I want you to do is do better than this. Because this is just routing every input to the outputs, turning them all the faders up to the same level, unmuting everything and letting it play, right? And this is what we get. But if you work with it a little bit, this is what you can get. That little guitar solo. Sounds a lot better now. Okay? So, that's just an example of what is possible if you take some time and actually mix this right. I'm not saying that's a great mix. I roughed that in an hour yesterday, but I could easily spend a week on this to make it even better. But this is what we get paid to do, right? Is to start with something like this and end up with something better, okay? Two things I want you to notice that I was doing there is not only had I utilized a lot of functionality in the mixer here to do a lot of that work for me, but I was doing some of that in real time. you saw me moving faders a little bit at different parts, right? So some of this is a performance as much as it is programming, okay? So any questions so far?
What are the ST connections that you have?
I will tell you about that in a minute. So let's hang on to that question for a sec. So first thing I want to do is I'm just going to mute all these channels for a sec, and I'm going to start organizing things a little bit, okay? So the first thing I want to do is I want to look at my mixer setup, and I want to look at my bus configuration. So what I've done is I've just recalled the starting snapshot that I told you guys you get to start with. It just has everything routed to stereo, all the faders up, and that's it. What I'd like to do is I want to take my mix buses and I want to kind of use them to my advantage. There's a few things I want to do. I want to create, normally, when you're doing a situation with live sound, stereo is not really a thing. It doesn't really work in a big live venue, but it works, you know, works on headphones, it works in living rooms. And for purposes of this assignment, you can assume that stereo is a thing because we have, you know, stereo set up here, and you can play around with that to the extent that you want to try to wrangle that, okay? So I'm going to try to use that and give you some experience manipulating and creating stereo effects, which is my preamble to say that's going to influence some of what I do with these buses. Because what I would really like to do, I've got a lot of drum mics here, right? I've got 10 drum mics. And I would really like to send those all into a subgroup that I can control together. But one of the ways that's going to make all of that work that they did to add all those different drum mics, one thing that's going to make that pay off is if I can make them, each of those mics sound like they're coming from a different place in that stereo image. That will like make that worth it. If I couldn't do that, I would just forget it and use the 2 room mics and say that's the drums. But since they had all those close mics, what that could get us is the ability to kind of spread that sound out across that stereo effect. And so if I'm going to collect all those mics, put them in a group, I need that group to be a 2-channel group, a stereo group, so that I can, you know, position those different sounds across that stereo image. So I am going to need, what I've got here is I have our 16 mix buses, and the first 8 are set as variable, in other words, auxes, okay? And then 9 through 16 are set up as fixed, which makes them behave like groups, okay? And I'm going to want a group for the drums, so that'll be my 9/10, and I'm going to set it to stereo, a stereo fixed group. That way, I can route them together and I can manipulate the stereo image across the 2, okay? And it'll be like it's one thing, even though it's 2. Then I'm also going to have, I want to take I've got a lot of guitars here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 channels of guitars. And I want to put those all into a group so I can mix them separately. And if I've got all the guitars, I want to manipulate those on the stereo image as well. So we'll say 11 and 12 will be my guitar group. I'll have that be a stereo group. And then I'll probably want the vocals in one group, but I don't need to do stereo on that, so I'll leave these ones as mono fixed groups. So once I've done that, I can click OK, and now I've got some ability to manipulate this a little bit. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to take all of these drum mics and I'm going to unroute them from that stereo group, okay, or that stereo output. So if I now unmute them, I don't hear them anymore because they're not routed to the stereo, right? And then I want to get my group, so I'll go here and go to Overview, and here's my mix window. So here's all my groups, and 9 and 10 are my drums, so I'm going to label those. So this will be drum left and drum right. and I want to route this group to stereo. That turns it into a subgroup. So I'm going to send all the drums into those two group mix buses, left and right, and then I'm going to route those to the stereo out so that I can hear them out of the speakers. Make sense so far? Okay. So now I can go in and start working on these. So I'm going to start by, I've got the kick drum selected here, so I hit the select button on the kick drum, and it's selected here. And here is the channel strip that I've selected. And I want to route this to this drum left-right group. So I hit on, and it routes it there. Okay. Now when you do this, and I don't know if you can see it here. Yeah, if you look, let me see if I can switch it so you can see. So on this channel strip, I've got the 8 knobs representing the 8 auxes, and then the 9 through 16 are just buttons, okay? So to route that kick drum there, I just click on the 9, and it automatically routes it to the 10 because they're a linked pair, okay? But over here on the computer, it still has the knobs, even though they're not really doing anything. Like I don't think I can even manipulate them. Oh, I can. But I don't think they really do anything because these are fixed. Yeah, I don't think that does anything. Okay. So here's my kick drum, yeah? All right, so what do I want to do with this? Well, I don't need to worry about gain right now because this is a digital connection straight into the board, so the gain's already sorted out. But what were the things about this that we didn't like in terms of it being a kick drum? Yeah. Yeah, I'm hearing all this other stuff, right? Let's see if we can do something about that. So because this is a digital mixer, I have some extra processing available to me. I have the aux and group routing, but I also have this EQ, which we had on the analog console, and then I have these 2 dynamics processors over here. And what dynamics processors do is they process the sound in the amplitude domain. So equalizers process the sound in the frequency domain, meaning they can manipulate the loudness of individual frequencies. What dynamics processors do is they manipulate the sound in the amplitude domain, meaning they can respond to and make changes to the sound in terms of how loud it is, okay? And by default, there are 2 types of dynamics processors loaded up. The Dynamics 1 by default has what's called a gate, and the Dynamics 2 has what's called a compressor. A gate is basically an automatic mute button. So I like to pretend that there's a little Smurf sitting inside the box, okay? And that Smurf's got his hands on a mute button, and he's listening to the sound, okay? So he's listening to this drum, okay? And what I want him to do is I want him to mute this mic when the kick drum isn't being hit, and unmute it when the kick drum is hit. So I can mute it whenever it's just picking up all that extra stuff. Okay? So what would the Smurf need to know in order to do that effectively? Yeah.
The threshold of how loud the kick drum is versus what everything else is going to sound like?
Yeah, so where's the line between something I want to hear versus something I don't want to hear? And remember, this is all we can really do is loudness. So there's a line between anything louder than this is something I want to hear, anything quieter than this is something I don't want to hear, okay? So that is controlled using a threshold. So you'll see there's a threshold knob here. And I can open this same thing up. If I go over here to the camera, over here on the channel strip, I've got EQ, and then I've got Dynamics 1 and Dynamics 2. So I can click on that, and it pulls up the same settings for the gate as I have over here on the computer screen. So you can get it either way. So here's my threshold. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the gate, okay? And if I set this threshold all the way up to 0, that's saying like anything louder than unity is something I want to hear. And I'm basically not hearing anything now, because even the kick drum is not as loud as that. So I'm going to reduce this threshold until it starts letting the kick drum through and then muting it when everything else is going on. So this little red line is when it gets reduced. Now, I can decide, it doesn't have to be a full mute button would be like all the way down here. But I can say, well, maybe don't mute it, just like turn it down by 30 dB or something. Depends on what you want to do. And then there's this attack and decay. Attack is like how quickly does it get unmuted like literally a button, or does it get unmuted in the sense that a fader gets pushed up, right? If it's 0 milliseconds, it's just like a button. If you put any time in that attack, then it'll like fade it in. I don't really want that for the drum, right? I want it to come in as soon as they hit it. But there's this decay thing where it's like, okay, well, once the sound drops below that threshold, like how quickly do I want it to get muted? And let's play with that a little bit. If I set it down really tight, then all I'm really hearing is kick drum. If I increase this decay, then there's a little bit of like it's fading out whenever it gets a chance to, but then every time the kick drum gets hit, it brings it back up again. So it has the effect of not quite getting rid of all that stuff. So if I want to look for the decay setting that doesn't rob that kick drum of like everything that's good about it, but still filters out as much of that bleed as I can. And I'm going to pull up this range a little bit. Okay, we'll say that's good for now. Okay, now the other thing I want to do is I want to play around with the EQ a little bit. Because what I really, now this is a subjective thing, but what I really want to do is this kick drum mic is picking up a lot of like that high frequency snap of the drum. I don't really want that. I want this to be a low thump. So I'm going to use my EQ to grab a high shelf and kind of reduce, filter out some of that high frequency stuff. Right? There's that, or that. Now, all by itself, that doesn't sound like really great, but remember, we're going to mix this with a bunch of other stuff. I'm just trying to figure out what role do I want each of these things to play. Okay, great. So that's good. That's ready to go. And I'm going to repeat this process now for all the other things. So we can go over to our snare drum and do the same thing. So I can route that to the 9 and 10. I'll turn on the gate. And we need to get this, hang on a sec. Okay. Sorry, speaking of children, they're texting me. Okay. It sounds like they're doing. It sounds like he's doing like a rim shot right now or something. So I'm going to try to raise the threshold a little bit. Oh, that's pretty good. Now I'm getting mostly just the snare drum now. Okay. Let's switch over to this compressed drum. This is running it through a compressor, which has, we'll talk about a compressor in a minute, but I don't really love that. I don't really think that's going to play a strong presence in my mix. I'm probably just going to take it out, maybe put a little bit of it in. It just kind of fattens it up a little bit. So I'm going to have that be pretty quiet. I'm going to have kick drum be pretty loud. All right. So I don't really like that. I'm not going to spend much attention to that. Hi-hat. So if I just do the hi-hat all by itself, same thing, I want to gate this a little bit. So I'm having a little hard time with this, and part of it is because I'm picking up all this other stuff, and it's not that much quieter. One of the things that could really help here is a high-pass filter. So the high-pass filter just filters out everything that's below a certain frequency. So I'm going to turn that on, and I'm going to take this up pretty high. Let's see. I'm going to adjust my range here so it's not cutting it quite so much. That's a little bit better. So generally speaking, anything that doesn't have a lot of low frequency energy in it, you're going to want to do that high pass filter on. That includes like this snare drum. So like if I go over here to the snare drum, I'm going to put that on here too. So it's not picking up that kick drum very much either. All right, so already these drums are sounding better, right? We're really getting somewhere now. All right, now here's our tom. We're going to do the same thing. Let's high pass filter that. Pretty high. I'm gonna try to find a threshold. And let me just mute the other thing so I can really hear what I'm doing. One of you want to try to do it now that you've seen me do it a few times? And try to do the gate for the toms?
I got it.
All right, come on up, Bryce. So see if you can figure out what threshold to put this in to where you hear the toms, but you don't hear anything else. So it would be this. You can do it here. Let's see. So you can do it here with this knob, which is the threshold here, or you can do it with the threshold knob there, but whatever you want to do.
All right.
Let me route it to the group so we can hear what we're doing. So, no, it's not that, it's this.
All right.
Threshold. You're trying to find what's the point at which it lets the tom through, but doesn't let anything else. So you probably turn it up. All right. Okay, there was the tom.
This takes a while for the actual tom to come through.
Yeah, so you're trying to, how high can you get this and have it still let the tom come out?
Oh.
Yeah, you got that pretty high, right?
Yeah. Just takes a minute for them to.
Yeah. So I would maybe even reduce this decay a little bit so that it'll,
The decay is what's making it fade down. Right?
yeah. Yeah. See how that works?
Yeah.
Okay, we got it. All right, let's do the next one. Anybody else want to try the next tom? See if we can gate that thing. Don't be shy. Anybody? Anybody? Or you just want to watch me do it?
Or I'll do it again.
That's not as fun. Nobody? All right, Bryce is going to do it again. Everyone else is too scared.
Okay. What is this again?
That-
More tom.
This is the low tom. I'm going to do the high pass filter on it. That'll help. Go ahead. Yeah, they just haven't played it yet. There it was. Yeah, so you can take it higher. Here, I'll shuttle back to that spot. You're probably going to back it off a little bit from there. I think we've lost it now. There it goes. I'll go to the end where they were doing a lot of it. Yeah, if you do that decay too short, then it kind of robs it of the tail of that drum.
So I gotta get the threshold just enough to where you can hear the instrument over everything else.
Yeah.
But I gotta get the decay enough to where you hear all of it.
Yeah,
over everything
exactly.
else.
Yep. There you go. You did it. Okay. Very good. All right. Let's look at. I've got these overheads here. Let's route that in, and let me get over to where we have some of this. This I'm definitely going to want the high pass filter on. It's going to be tough to gate this, just because it's, you know, I mean, what we really want out of this is the cymbals, but we don't have a huge differential there. I can try. I'm going to try.
Where's the high pass on here?
That would be here in the EQ. So you go here to the EQ. There's the high pass filter. You turn that on, and you can adjust where you want it to cut. Right? Yeah, I'm not going to be able to successfully gate this. So this is just going to be kind of an overhead of all the drums. The only thing I can do is use this high pass filter to kind of filter out some of that low energy at least. And that'll allow it to focus on the cymbals more. So I'll set this high pass filter pretty high. And that'll emphasize the cymbals, right? So let me go to my other one. There's the other overhead. And I'm just going to do the same thing. I'll bring this high pass filter up pretty high. But the other thing I'm going to want to do now, now that I've got these laid out, is I want to mess around with the stereo imaging a little bit. So for example, this hi-hat, I can move that a little bit over to the left. This tom left, I can maybe put a little there. I can move the right tom all the way over this way. I can take these overheads and move them alternating left to right pretty far. Can you hear that? I usually try to think about it in terms of from the point of view of the person playing the drums, like where are all these drums, right? So like the kick drum and the snare are usually right in front of them, and then you've got like cymbals here, cymbals there. The toms are kind of go boom, 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 boom over there. The hi-hat's kind of over here. So that's usually how I do it, but I don't know that there's a wrong way to do it, you know.
You're doing it opposite of what you're looking at.
Yeah, I'm doing it from the point of view of the drummer, right? But that's just how I do it. I don't know that that's right or wrong. That's just usually what I do. There you go. Now I still have our room mics, which I can put them in there, and I'll pan them left and right as well. But I really think those are probably going to be quieter. I don't want those to play a huge role in this. So it's really just a question of how loud do I want these other things. So there's my hi-hat. I think I want that a little quieter. I'll bring these toms up a little bit more and leave the cymbals about there. There you go. I think that sounds all right. So there you go. There's my mix of the drums, and now I have them over here on this subgroup. And when they get going again, you'll see. Now I can mix that thing I created, I can mix again. Because it's a stereo group, I push one fader and the other one moves with it. Maybe a little bit more hi-hat. Okay. How we feeling? Everybody with me so far? All right. So I'll mute my drums group now. So now let's go to the bass. So here's my bass. I'm not going to make a group for that because it's just one thing. So I'll leave that routed to the stereo. And generally speaking, our ears are not super sensitive to these low frequencies, so I usually mix the bass really loud. So that's usually one of the loudest things in the mix for me. The only thing you might do with this is a little bit of EQ, maybe tame some of, use a little high shelf on this to emphasize that low frequency a little bit. But if I put that together with the drums, bass is considered part of the rhythm. So I want to kind of hear it together with the drums and make sure that's sounding like they're playing together, like they're balanced together pretty well. Yeah. I like that. Okay, so let's play with these guitars now. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do with all of these guitars is I'm going to unroute them from stereo. And I need to pull up the other set of channels over here. I'll unroute that from stereo. And you can go away, make that bass go away for now. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to route these into my guitar group. Okay, so that's my 11 and 12. And let me go ahead and label that. So this will be I'll do guitar, left, guitar, right. And I'll route this to stereo. Now, when I listened to, on Canvas, I posted up there the official mix of this song, like the mix that showed up on their album when they released this song. So you can listen to what the band thought they wanted out of this song that they actually put out there into the world. You don't have to do it that way. I'm not even inferring that what it is bad or wrong. It just is. It's just what they did. It's a little bit different than what I did. And you don't have to try to copy what they did, but it might give you some ideas and something to compare it against if you're trying to understand how what you're doing fits. And one of the things I noticed they were doing in that official mix is they were spreading all these guitars out in the stereo image. These distorted guitars were really wide in that stereo field. And the clean guitars came in a little narrower, and then the solos came in towards the center. And I liked that idea. I was like, yeah, I like that. That works. I'm going to copy that idea. I'm going to steal that. So that's the first thing I'm going to do is I've got this clean guitar, and let's go ahead and it's routed to the guitar group. And I think it's probably, oh yeah, let me unmute it. So these ones I'm going to have kind of here in the stereo effect. I'll pan it that way. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on the high pass filter. Not because I've got bleed here, but what happens when you get so many channels going together, the low frequency energy builds up and multiplies on itself. And so anything you can do to tame that a little bit will often really help clean this up. So I'm going to take this up as high I can until I feel like it's taken something out of the guitar. That's right, if I take it up that high, I'm losing something, right? I don't want to do it that high. High pass filter. So I'm going to set it to about 150. I think that sounds pretty good. I'll pan that over, and that's all I'm going to do to that right now. So we'll go to the second clean guitar. We'll route that to my guitar group, and then I'll pan it over to the opposite thing. So I had the first one at left 22, so I'll do the second clean to right 22. I'll do the same high pass filter, and then let me unmute it. There we go. So I think that second one's a little hotter than the first one, so I'm going to mix it a little lower. Because if I just put them at the same, that second one kind of overpowers it, right? So I'm going to duck this one a little bit. Okay, very good. So I'll mute those for a second, and let's bring up these distorted ones. So I'll route those to my guitar group. Now, you see how I've got that hum? I'm going to gate that so that I don't have to listen to that until they actually start playing. And I don't even have to mess with the gate a whole lot. There's a pretty big difference between that. I'm going to do that for the other one too. Route it to there. And these ones I'm going to pan pretty far. Probably around 50. There's that one. There's that one. So again, I'm going to balance them a little bit. Okay. Now let's get to my lead guitars. They come in around here somewhere. I'll route those to my guitar group. And these I'm going to pan not quite to center. I'll have it be like left 10 or so. And then the other lead I'll do right 10 or so. And so let's see what this one sounds like. So I want to gate that handling noise out. I'm going to high pass filter this too. Yeah. So the gate just gets rid of all that noise when he's picking it up and putting the strap on and everything. Okay. So let's go to my second lead. And let's see, that plays earlier up here. I'll do the filter. Got a little bit of handling noise there. And these can be pretty loud in my overall guitar mix because these are solos. So I'm going to bring the faders up on these. Okay. Let me bring them all in now. So I've got a mix of just guitars, and I'm controlling that with one group, okay? And I'll figure out where I want that to live later, okay? But for now, I've got it. So let's just see what I got now. Yeah. We'll put the drums in. All right, we're making progress, right? This is better than it was. Okay. Now let's tackle these vocals. And you're going to be tempted to give this guy a hard time, but he really is not doing that bad. Yeah. So this is going to go into my, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's group 13. So it's currently labeled FX1. We'll talk about what that means in a minute, but I'm going to change it. So let's go to my mix, and we're going to call this my vocals. A lot of times we just say Vox because that fits usually most of the time. Okay. And then I'll route my vocal group to the stereo out.
Say what you will.
Okay, so we're going to first put a high-pass filter on this.
Say what you will.
And take it as high as we can get it without feeling like we're stealing something from his voice.
Say what you will. How quickly things change. When a girl no one seems to know anymore.
That's a lot better. I've lost a lot of that ambient sound, a lot of that handling sound, so I've just gotten rid of that, but I still hear his voice. I got it up to 200 hertz, and it still sounded all right to me.
And they just shake their heads and reply.
Now, the next thing I want to do is EQ this a little bit.
Divine, then why, Julie, why?
And the EQ, this is just something that comes with experience and a lot of sound gym,
Say what you
but
will.
I kind of feel like
Possibility didn't work.
there's a little bit too much of that 500 hertz octave range in this recording right now. So I'm going to go and grab that and duck that a little bit.
I hear that.
So here he's coming here.
Some would say that her life was a party.
So there it is without it,
And no one came.
and I'll put it in.
That wasn't the
Just clears it up a little bit. That's going to help it sit in the mix a little bit better. You can decide how much of that you want to do, but that's the sound I'm trying to get rid of
glimpse of her.
and reduce. There's just a lot of that. I'm going to just duck that a little bit.
Life is divine, she'd say.
Okay. I'm going to turn the gate on here
Say what you will.
to try to get rid of some of that, more of that headphone bleed a little bit.
Now some would say that her life was a party, and no one came.
But I can have the threshold pretty low because the ambient sound we're getting is pretty quiet.
Is there a way to like show what you mean with the
Balloons mark the spot,
Yeah.
and people lined
Um,
up to catch a glimpse of her beauty. Life is divine, she'd say.
You hear it?
Yes.
Okay.
Say what you will.
That's what I'm trying to get rid of, right? Because it's in there. It's not loud, but it's in there. I don't want it in there. So I'm going to gate it.
Say what you will. Divine, she'd say. That wasn't the case. Balloons marked the spot, and people lined up to catch a glimpse of
So I'm taking the threshold down pretty low because I don't want to cut off the beginnings of the words there.
she'd say.
But I do want to get rid of that headphone bleed. Okay, that's pretty good. Now I'm going to use a compressor. So let me explain what a compressor does. So if a gate is an automatic mute button, a compressor is an automatic volume knob. Okay, so now the Smurf is sitting in the box listening to the sound, and now his hand is on a fader. And especially with vocalists, there's a pretty wide dynamic range when people sing. You know, and this guy's no exception. So there's sometimes where he's singing really loud, he's kind of belting, and there's other times where he's going kind of quiet. And when that dynamic range is interesting to listen to. right? That's what makes a performance interesting, is when it's not all just the same thing. But too much dynamic range can make it hard to have it sit in a mix in some way that you can easily control. If the level of that vocal is just jumping all over the place too much, there'll be times when it's ducking below the music, and other times where it's like overpowering. And there are two ways you can handle that. You can sit there and ride that fader like crazy, really fast, as like certain syllables get emphasized and others don't. And that's a lot of work for you to do, and your finger may not be that quick. But the Smurf is real fast. And so we can do that with Smurf. It's all right, just ride this for me a little bit, even it out. So what you're going to say is, like, anything that gets louder than this, just turn it down a little bit. And then if it gets quieter, turn it back up again. So it's just going to try to take what is a really wide dynamic range and just squish it a little bit into a smaller dynamic range. You don't want to squish it completely, but you just want to tame it a little bit. So so your controls are a threshold, and the threshold says anything louder than this gets turned down. And then you have a ratio, and the ratio is how much does it get turned down. And so I usually like to set this for a vocal. I set it at 2-to-1, meaning if some part of that voice recording goes 10 dB above the threshold, and I have a 2-to-1 ratio on the compressor, then the Smurf's going to turn it down by 5 dB, because it went 10 dB over, and I have a 2-to-1 ratio, so it's going to turn it down by half that it went over. Okay, so it goes over by 10, it's going to turn it down 5. Goes over by 12, it's going to turn it down by 6. Okay, goes over by 6 dB, it'll turn it down by 3. Okay, and then you have attack and release, which is how fast that fade down and fade up happens. So let's turn this on and see if we can figure it out. What I usually like to do is I try to find the part where the vocalist is the quietest. So I'm going to go up here to the beginning where he's singing quieter. And I want to set the threshold. Oops, not that one. This one. I want to set the threshold so it's just barely hitting on that quiet part. And I know it's hitting because I'll see the compressor start to reduce it, that gain reduction there.
Now some would say that her life was a party, and no one.
Okay, so I've got it like -18 right now, and it's just barely kicking in. And then if we go to the parts where it gets louder, we should see it kick in more when he gets louder. Yeah, see? So it's reducing it by more when he sings louder. All right, so the Smurf's just kind of riding this fader for me a little bit. It's evening out this dynamic range a little bit, which is going to make it a lot easier for me to mix it. Now, when this happens, overall, it ends up sounding quieter because the loud stuff got quieter, which is why you have this gain. This is a makeup gain. And I'm going to boost this by, I'm going to say 3 dB at least, and then we'll see how it goes. Because this thing that used to be really wide dynamic range just got all the high stuff turned down. So now I'm going to turn the whole thing up so it gets it to sit hotter, okay?
Life is divine, she'd say, and they just shake their heads in reply.
Okay.
If life's so divine, then why, Julie, why?
All right, let's do our backup vocal now. Do all the same things. High pass filter it.
Say what you will.
I'm going to gate it.
Say what you will.
We'll compress it.
Say what you will. Say what you will.
Let's listen to the EQ a little bit.
Say what you will.
So for this one, I think I kind of want, now this is where,
Say what
art versus science comes in. I can do corrective EQ on this, or I can do an effect. And I want to do an effect because this is a backup vocal. And it's going to sound more interesting, I think, if it sounds different. Okay? So I'm going to make it sound quite a bit different. I'm going to use the EQ to do that mostly.
Say what you
So I'm going to take this high pass filter up pretty high.
Say what you
And then I'm going to switch my high shelf to a low pass.
Say what you will.
Switch it what to a what?
So instead of this high frequency thing, which is a high shelf filter, I'm going to switch it to a low pass, which is instead of just boosting or cutting a bunch of stuff, it's going to completely eliminate everything below whatever frequency that I choose. Okay? And I'll turn it on. And I'm going to reduce this frequency here. So you see what I'm doing? I'm creating a little area here of the part of this voice I want, and I'm going to filter everything else out. So let's see what that sounds like. Oh, I muted the channel. Hang on.
Say what you will.
Okay. Now, if this was if this was the only voice, I wouldn't do this, right? But because he's singing with somebody else, I think it might work.
How quickly things
So let's go back to
Say what you will.
and I'll balance them together.
Say what you will. Say what you will.
Just help separate them a little bit.
How quickly things change.
All right, let's see how we're doing.
When a girl no one seems to know anymore. Changes before that very line. Life is divine, she'd say, and they just shook their heads in reply. If life's so divine, then why'd you live why? Say what you will. Say what you will.
All right, we're getting there. I'm going to save my work now, okay? So I'm going to pull up the scene memory, and I'm going to navigate to number 3 here, and I'm going to hit store. And I'm going to call this my class mix. Okay. Mason class demo. All right, that way if I need to, I can come back to that. So let's just compare, okay? I like to do this. I like to A-B compare. So here's where we started. Okay, now here's where we are now. Let me go back up here a little bit.
Say what you will.
Here's where we started. Here's where we are now. I had the mute on there. Let me store this again.
How quickly things change.
That's where I started.
Before that
Here's where I am now.
line.
I've made enormous progress here, haven't I? Still not done though, right? Let's go to my final mix that I did, okay?
Shake their heads and reply. If life's so divine, then why'd you live why?
All right.
Say what you will.
opposed to this.
Say what you will.
Okay? So, what's the difference? What do you hear is the difference between my final one and where I am right now?
I definitely hear some reverb.
Okay, I'm doing some effects, right? This is where like the really good stuff happens, okay? There's a reason people like to sing in the shower, okay? Because there's usually a lot of tile, a lot of hard reflective surfaces, and it creates this echo effect where your voice is kind of bouncing around along the walls, and when those reflections get really close together, it's called reverberation. And reverberation makes voices in particular sound really good. And reverberation is a big part of like making stuff sound interesting when you're a sound designer. It's sort of like, you know, reverberation is to sound designers what like haze is to a lighting designer. You know, where lighting designers like fill the room with haze and then you can see the lights, you know, shining around in the room. It just makes everything a little bit cooler. So we're going to add some effects here, okay? Now, how do we do that? Well, this mixer has this thing called a rack, and here's the rack, and these are different effects we can do. So on the M7CL, you have 8 effects racks. 4 of them, the first 4 must be graphic EQs, and you can't ever change that. And I'm not even going to show you those because I think they're dumb. But some people like them. Well, no. A graphic EQ has like 31 fixed frequency bands in a 1/3 octave intervals, and then you can kind of boost or cut that. And for people who don't know a whole lot about EQ, they're pretty easy to walk up and start using because it does give you, the reason it's called a graphic EQ is it gives you some graphical representation of what you think you're doing to the frequency response. But in reality, those filters are overlapping way more than you think they are. And it ends up doing a lot more to the sound than you think you're doing. And so I don't really like to use them because of that. But you would use these as inserts on channels and stuff like that. A lot of people use these to tackle feedback squeals in a live sound system, which is a terrible way to try to fix your feedback problems. There's way better ways to do that, which we'll talk about in another class. But anyway, so these will be those all the time. You can't change it. So I want 2 things here. I'd like reverb, but then I also would like a little bit of an echo effect on those, like that guitar solo, that big electric guitar solo at the end. I'd really like a little bit of like an echo delay effect on that. I think that'd make it really cool. I'd like to put a little bit of that on the voices too, so when we get to the chorus, that's kind of like echoing around a little bit. I think that'd be cool too. And that's, so that's going to be called, I'm going to have a reverb processor and I'm going to have a delay processor. Delay is what creates that echo effect. So I'm going to say rack 8 will be my reverb. So let's pull this up and I'll double click on that. Here it is, and it's currently set up as a mono delay. I'm going to click on the library here, and here's my different options. And I'm going to do a room reverb. Okay. And reverb has a lot of different controls on it. The things you need to worry about the most are the reverberation time. So that's like how long does that sound linger, right? And for something like this, you know, we don't really need it too much. I mean, somewhere around one second is probably fine. Certainly not more than that. And then there's this initial delay or pre-delay, and that's sort of like how much time is there between when the sound goes in to the processor and then when we hear it reverbed on the way out. And the longer that pre-delay is, it kind of gives you the effect of a bigger room. In other words, it's like the walls are farther away. So I don't envision this song happening in a huge room, so I'm going to keep that pretty small. So yeah, I'll leave that as it is. Now what I've got to do is I got to patch this thing. So you've got the inputs here, and I really want this to be fed from an aux, because I want to be able to take the input channels and dial a different amount of each channel into this reverb. And so I want to use an aux to do that. So the input here is going to be, let's see, let's say mix 2, or maybe, actually, I'm going to say mix 3 for reasons that I will explain later. So I'll do mix 3, and then we'll do mix 4 as the second channel. That way I can send, because what I'm thinking is, when I create this delay, I want this delay to create an echo that's happening on pinging back and forth between two channels. And I want to be able to feed that echo into the reverb and keep that left-right pinging going on. So I'm going to change my bus configuration to allow for that. That's why I need 2 inputs here. So let me go to my mixer setup, and I'm going to have 3 and 4 be a stereo aux. Okay, that way I can feed it in that way. And then where do I want that to come back? Okay, so the output of this processor is going to be, it's right now doing stereo in 4 left and right, which is over here. So that's fine. I can live with that. I can work with that. So if I go and look at this channel now, and I look at my stereo ins, this will be my reverb. So I'm going to call this verb left and verb right. It's already routed to stereo. Go ahead and bring it up, and then we'll see what we do with this. So the biggest thing on a reverb is the voice, right? So let's go find that channel.
Invincibility didn't work for her.
And I'm going to set this to post fade so that the reverb changes when I move the fader. And then I'm going to send some of it into that aux.
Now some would say that her life was a party and no one came. That wasn't the case.
Yeah? So this is the dry, and then now I've got reverb added to it. I may not want that much, but that's what I have a fader for. Now I can mix it, okay? And I'll do the same thing with the background vocals.
Say what you will. Say what you will. Say what you will.
Okay. Now I want some of these guitars and this reverb too. So I'll mute the vocals for a sec. And we'll put some of this into the reverb as well. Yeah, I like that. Now let's do the distorted. A little bit of reverb on that too. Now let's go to our lead guitars. want a lot of reverb on this one. Let's go back. Okay, that's good. I'm gonna go back to this solo now. My lead 2. There we go. Okay. There's no reverb. And now I have the reverb. Okay, no reverb. And now reverb. See what that does? And then you just mix it however much you want in any moment. You can ride that fader. All right. And I might go back and, you know, I can add some of the drums into the reverb if I want. You know. Hang on. I think my backup vocal is, oh, it is. It's still routed to stereo. Forgot to take that out. Okay. With me so far? Any questions?
I just opened. Oh, you on it?
Does the Smurf get paid?
Great question.
Does the Smurf get bit?
Paid?
Oh, paid. No.
Free job.
I mean, you have to buy the compressor, so I guess he's probably getting a cut of it. Although it's digital, so, you know, we didn't have to pay a lot of money. What was your question over here?
How do you get to how do you open up the rack?
I just went to Windows and Rack and then clicked it here. Now over here on the mixer, you can, there's a little button here for Rack and it pulls it up there and then you can go in and change it.
All right.
Yep. Yep.
Do you have to sign those stereo faders that you have it?
I mean, they're already routed to this main stereo out, it looks like, so I didn't have to really do anything but bring the fader up. But
by default, are those effects in the rack automatically put on the stereo?
yeah, so those last 4 are routed to stereo 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's why I didn't have to change it. All right, so let's do my echo effect now, shall we? See if we can get that figured out. So that'll be my rack 7. Let's go to my library. I want a stereo delay. And here it is. So you've got delay left, delay right, okay? And you've got, this is a feedback gain left, a feedback gain right. So the delay left, delay right is like that first delay. How long does it take for it to kick on? And then the feedback is how much does it loop itself back into that, right? How long does it keep looping in there? We'll play with it for a little bit and see. The one thing you'll notice here is there's this setting for tempo. And this can, because ideally you want these echoes to line up with the tempo of the music. Because it'd be weird if they didn't, right? If the music was going bum, 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 and and then the echoes were going all over the place, and it wasn't lining up, right? It'd be nice if they were together. Bum, ba, ba, bum, ba, ba, bum, ba, ba, bum, ba, ba, bum. That would make more sense, okay? So you have this thing called a tap tempo, and if I click this, first of all, I think I have to turn sync on. And if I tap tempo, you see how the delays are changing as I tap this? So I can tap in the tempo of the song. So let me do that real quick. Let's unmute this stuff. And I'm just going to tap along with the music here.
Say what you will.
All right. So now it's locked in. Now I've got these delays will be synced with the beat of the music. And I'm just going to leave the rest of this as is, and then we'll see what it sounds like. So I think we'll probably, I want to feed this from mix 1. And then it'll come back on stereo in 3. And then what I want to do is I want to go into this channel and stereo in 3. I want to route this into my reverb. So this is now the delayed sound is coming back into stereo 3. And yeah, it's going to go out to the main stereo out, but I also want to send it into the reverb so my echoes are getting reverb as well. Okay, so I would do that by turning up this send into this mix 3 and 4. I'll do that in a second once we have the echo going. So let's first get the channels we want to do, which I think is probably going to be, I'm going to start with the voice. That's the thing I probably want the most
Say what
done.
you will. Say what you will.
I'll have this be post fade. Well, here we go.
Say what you will. Say what you will.
Yeah? Hear that?
Say what you will.
Now, if
Say
I
what you will.
go and select the stereo,
Say what you will. Say what you will. How quickly things change when a girl no one seems to know anymore.
so I'm going to select
Changes
the delay return.
very line. Life is divine, she say, and they just shake their heads and reply.
And I'm going to route it into the reverb.
Then watch you why.
You hear the difference?
Say what you will.
So this is no reverb on the echo.
Say what you will.
Now reverb on the echo. So I'll leave that in.
Say what you will. Say what you will.
Okay, we're almost there. I think I want to add a little bit of echo to that last guitar solo. So let me go find that here. That's this one. Right? Okay, I more or less have it now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix that echo and that reverb. I'll have less during the verses and then more during the choruses and the guitar solos.
Life is divine, she'd say, and they just shake their heads in reply. If life's so divine, then why truly why? Say what you will.
I'll boost it for this.
Say what you will.
Yeah? Okay. I'm going to store that.
Say what you
Questions?
So what you just did was mixing the reverb and the echo. Is that, did you save that, or would we have to do that live every single time?
You have to do that live every single time, yeah. If this was like, if we were mixing the actual like recorded track of this, that we were going to like publish this, we would do all of what I just did. You would do that same stuff in something like Pro Tools or Logic, and you could, and in that you could automate that fader move. You can't really do that here. You can, but you'd have to. You need to get a computer to talk to it to do that, and I don't really want to get into that. That's not really. So you mix that live, yeah. For this, you do anyway. Other questions? Okay, so let's do some A/B-ing now. Okay, so here's what we started with, right? And here's what we ended up with. There's the version I did the other day. A little bit different. And then I'm gonna goose the ending here. Right? You always want to like be able to grab that fader right at the end. I'm gonna do a big like bump at the end, like you bump it too. Makes it way more exciting. Okay. So this is what I want you to do. Okay? I just did the whole thing in front of you. That's what I need you to do for this assignment. Okay? And I'm hoping that you all do something a little bit different. Don't do it exactly the way I did, but you're going to do the same kind of stuff and try to make this sound however you want. What I'm mainly interested in is I want to see that you have some understanding of how to push sound around inside this thing. Okay, so most of this is about signal flow, about showing, oh yeah, I can put something in a group, I can put something into an aux, I can run it through an effect, I can then bring it back in and then send it back to the out. That's what I'm looking for is that you're understanding how to move the sound around inside of this thing. It's primarily a routing exercise. You will also try to make it sound good, for sure, but that's not as big of a deal, okay? I primarily just want to see you experimenting with moving the sound around in some purposeful way. So it's not just inputs going straight to the stereo out, that you're leveraging buses and effects and processing and things to try to like manipulate it. And you're doing that in some purposeful way. Okay? Does that make sense? Now, what you're going to want to do is once you save it to a scene like that, you're going to want to back this thing up, okay, and take it with you. So you can do that one of two ways. You can go over to the computer here, and you can do save session. Do a save session as, and it'll say, all right, what do you want to do? Do you want to save an editor file or a console file? If you save an editor file, then you open the file here in the editor app. If you save it as a console file, you can put it on a little USB drive, and then you can plug that into the console, and you can open it on the console. You can do either. The other thing you can do is you can go in here, you can put a little USB drive into this little slot here, and then you can go into the setup here. Let me switch it so you can see. Right, so I go into setup, and then over here there's this save load thing. And if you have a USB stick in here, you can hit save and it'll save this show file to the USB stick, and then you can take it out. That's a good idea. Then you're taking it with you. Either way is fine, but I do want you to upload that file to Canvas. Okay, once you make that file, upload it to Canvas, and then on the day of next week when we listen to all these, you're going to walk up here and you're going to load your file. Okay, you either put it in here and load it, or put it in the computer and load it, and that's it. And then we're going to play the song, and if you have any live mixing you're doing as part of it, you can do that, but you're not going to program it in real time. Like, you're just going to put a file in, we'll load it up, and we'll see what you got, right? This is one of the advantages of digital consoles, is it will remember what you've done. Now, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and delete the scene that I just did, so that isn't mucking this up. Let's see, I'll clear that out. I have, so I've got 3 scenes that'll be in here already. There's the initial data, which you can't do anything with, that just comes there. I have the scene number 1, which is just the starting point. That's where I want you to start from, is recall scene 1 and start working. If you feel like you need some, if you're stuck and you're just not sure what to do, I do have scene 2, which is my example. And if you want to go and noodle around with that, that's fine. I have locked that scene so you can't delete it or overwrite it or anything, but you can go back to it. Just understand that if you recall that, it's going to overwrite all of your work. Okay, so before you recall my scene as a comparison, save yours. Okay, so you can go back. Because if I'm here and I'm working, you know, and I do whatever mix I'm going to do, and I like this, and I go, I don't know if what I've got is like working or not. Let me see what Jason did. I can go here, and I was like, okay, here's what Jason did. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah. Oh, wait, now how do I get back to what I had? I didn't save it. The only thing I can do is go back to this scene 1, and now I've lost all that. So instead, you want to do your work. Okay? And then you want to save that. So I'll go in and say, all right, I'm going to store this to scene 3. And now it's there. And now I can go back to this one. I can listen to this. And now I can go back to mine. And now it's got all the changes, right? And if you make a change, you're going to want to restore. So hit store and override it so that you keep it. Every time you make a change that you want to save, store on top of that scene, okay? That make sense? Yeah, question?
Can I take a file from the console and then do the routing on my computer?
You can. The only thing is, you won't have the benefit of hearing what you're doing, right? So if you want to rough this in at home and you want to install the M7CL editor on your computer, you can absolutely do that. So what you would do, let me just clean this up here. I'll get rid of that one I just made. So I'm going to get rid of this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this session, and I'm going to put it on the desktop of this computer. And I'll say, this will be say what starting file. And I'll save it as an editor file. So that's just sitting on the desktop of this computer now. And yeah, you could plug your thumb drive into this computer, take that file and take it home with you and goof around with the M7CL editor if you want, and save stuff. But again, you're going to be doing it without hearing anything you're doing. So your productivity will be somewhat limited. But yeah, if you want to get a little bit ahead and rough some stuff in and then come in, that's great. But you're probably going to need to be spending some time on the actual thing, hearing it. So I did post on Canvas some programming slots, just so that we don't have any traffic jams. You can sign up for, I think I limited it to 6. So that gives you a total of 3 hours potentially that you could spend on this, which I don't really want you spending any more than that. Okay, you shouldn't take you more than 3 hours.
Is it bad form to like block an hour off at once?
That's fine. I mean, that's what I'm limiting. As I'm limiting it to 6 sessions, just so that one person doesn't monopolize the whole week, and then no one can work. But yeah, you can spread that out however you want, but just know it will cut you off at 6. You don't have to use all 6, but you shouldn't be spending more time than that. I'm not expecting these to be perfect. I know for many of you this will be your very first time doing anything like this. I'm not even expecting that you'll get to something like what I did. So don't agonize over this for hours and hours and hours. Spend a little bit of time, give it your best shot, and then we'll listen to it. We'll see how it sounds, and I'll give you some tips. Yes, Miles.
Just to extract it onto a hard drive, we do the process that you just did, where we save it onto the desktop and move it to that.
Yeah, so this is the editor file, so you could save it as that and then put it on your drive. Yep, you just save it to it wherever you have that. I'm going to go ahead and let me lock this one just so nobody can save over it. But yeah, you can grab that, and that way if something weird is going on and you don't know what's happening, you can at least go into the editor here and just open that session, and it'll bring it all up. And when you do that, it's going to bring up this window, the synchronization window, and that's just to say, hey, what do you want to do with these settings? You got to resync the app with the board. And in this case, since I loaded the file here, I want to sync PC to console because I want to put what's on the computer on the console. So I set that, click OK, and now it's going to send everything to the actual thing, and then it'll be there. Okay. Other questions?
Can the Smurfs unionize?
Yeah.
Jason the Union Buster.
Yes, sir.
How do you make groups again?
So that is in Mixer Setup. This is where you have your 16 mix buses, and you can decide whether they're variable or fixed. Variable meaning they act like auxes, fixed meaning they act like groups. Okay, you can also do that over here. If you go to Setup and hit Bus Setup, you get that same window. Okay, and that's how you can configure the mix buses. And then if you want to play with them once you've made them, you pull them up here. You got 1 through 8, 9 through 16, and you can route them and do whatever you want with them.
Okay.
So my advice would be to try to get in here sometime the next day or two to noodle with this a little bit, find out what things didn't stick, and that way you've got time to reach out to me for questions. If you wait until Monday, have that be the first time you come and stand in front of this thing, you're going to realize, oh, I don't understand this, and you may or may not be able to get a hold of me by then, okay? So try to get in here within the next day or two for at least 30 minutes to play with it. And then it's totally fine if you want to reach out to me for questions, okay? But just know that I got other classes I'm teaching and other things I'm doing, just like you, so happy to help you, but I may not be able to help you like within 30 seconds of you sending me an email. We might need to like find a time to get together, and I'm happy to do that. Other questions? Okay, that's it. we got about 30 minutes left. If you guys want to come up and noodle with it right now, I'll bring up my starting point, and you're welcome to come try. Yep, they're up there now.